Saturday, a swim, chaos, which we didn't know what it was yet, and then 2 muscle up, pull up workouts. That should be a really good day for me. Looking forward to that. The swim, I feel like I could go pretty in depth on. I think I'm gonna keep it short. I got out of the swim, which was the first element of the event, in 3rd place, which for me felt really good personally, and then it also felt good to be able to validate all the time I spent and time that Kyle Ruth, one of the coaches here, spent with me working on my swimming this season to finish the swim in 3rd. So I felt good about that. I got on the paddleboard, lost a little bit of ground there, and when I got to the final portion of that event, which was a 1.5 mile run, for whatever reason, I'm still not exactly sure why, I just felt exhausted and I lost a good amount of ground there, and I just didn't have the finishing kick that I wanted to on the run. So I ended up taking 12th overall in that event, which again was slightly disappointing because I thought that could have been a top 3, top 5 workout for me. But it is what it is. Kind of felt just okay about it. Like, I'm not gonna get too disappointed, but whatever, moving on.
Chaos was an interesting event to watch.
And that was the first time that they'd ever done an event where we didn't know the movements, we didn't know the time frame, we didn't know how many reps we were doing. It was go out on the floor, 3, 2, 1, go, move forward to the first element. Your judge is gonna tell you when to stop working, move to the next one, start working, judge will tell you when to stop and move to the next one.
Man, if they come out and this is a 30-minute event, and I watched the females go out on the ski erg in the first heat. Well, I guess it was just one heat. It was one heat of all the females, of all 40 females, and then one heat of all the males. If it had been like a 35-minute event, the pace they were holding on the ski erg would have made that workout awful. And so I didn't know the workout like all the other fans, because Castro didn't announce it. He just told us they don't know what they're doing, and their judge is going to just tell them when to move forward. So they're on the ski erg, and I'm looking at the clock. They get off at like, I don't know, something like 90 seconds. It's like, all right, this is probably then going to be like a normal like CrossFit style event, somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes. It's not going to be something that he threw out like an hour-long event like that. In my head, I'm thinking chaos is going to be like something that really sticks out in their head and maybe ruin some athletes from a psychological or physical perspective and gets them to blow up. So when I saw that, I was kind of put at ease, because I'm like, all right, well, he's going to come out. He'll probably stay somewhere in the middle of the pack. We couldn't talk to them, so I had no idea how he's going to strategize it. I had no idea what he was going to do. At the time, I didn't know what the movements were, but as they started happening, I saw it went from the ski erg. I think the order was burpees, then overhead squats, then pistols, then the box jumps, then the sled. I might have missed a movement or maybe called them out of order, but I'm like, all right, well, the ski erg is one of his best cyclical machines. Single arm overhead squats are good, burpees are good, pistols are great in terms of speed and turnover and comfort under fatigue. High box jumps, it seemed like the box was so high that people weren't really able to separate. And then that sled drag is going to be the big rolly sand thing drag was going to be the real crux of the workout for him. So I was hoping that he would get to that, get on it, put it on his back, pull it the whole distance, and close out strong.
I feel like I handled it well. I think it could have gone many different directions. Like, some people could have freaked out and panicked and anticipated the next movement too much, or overpaced or underpaced and gone way too hot and been burned out by the time they got to the second or third movement. But I feel like I picked a pretty good steady pace that I moved through. I took advantage of some of the movements like pistols and dumbbell overhead squats that were better for me, and ended up finishing that event in 9th overall. It was another one similar to the Battleground where I finished and I felt okay about it. I didn't feel great. I felt like the final movement was I don't even know what you would call that, like a sled drag kind of. There was this big sand-filled cylinder that we had to drag, I don't know, 100 feet, something like that. And I really, really, really wanted to be tough and pull that thing the whole way through without stopping. I think had I done that, I would have finished in the top 5. And I don't know what it was. Sometimes in the moment, your mind and body don't link up. And my mind was telling me to keep going, and my legs were just like trembling numb. And so I had to stop.
That, whatever 10 seconds could have been the difference. So he had 9:52 in 11th place. 4th place was 9:40, which was 12 seconds faster. So those little execution errors in the moment end up being huge point discrepancies.
So I was a little bit disappointed that I hadn't been able to finish that one strong.
But I thought the execution was pretty good. When there's something that unknown and that untrained that you've never experienced, to be near the lead pack, to be near the top 10, to be in the top 15, it's kind of what you're aiming for and striving for, because the ability to close out and win those, I think, is a lot of times dictated by the actual structure of the event and maybe taking the appropriate risk at the right time. And the risk could potentially be a 30th place finish or something if you end up really blowing it. So it ended up being kind of a neutral event. I think good execution, but again, I didn't really have anything to say before because I couldn't, but after that event, I was like, all right, well, you got an 11th, good stuff. I'd probably got to figure out how to not stop on those types of like finishes, like right at the end of the workout. You got to be able to finish through. And I gave him that reminder for other workouts, not because I wanted to rub it in and say, that wasn't good enough. It was more of like hey, remember the finishing kick thing that we've been working on all year. Like, it's going to play out. It's going to be a big difference. So that was the chaos event. So the bi-couplet 2 and 1 these are the opportunities. So we talked about in Noah's preparation, anytime there's CrossFit stuff, things like the Open, he has to be able to capitalize and get as many points as possible. And I went up to him right after the briefing of this workout and I said, this reminds me of the Open. And you've won the Open before. You have the ability on these types of movements. You have to be able to execute. So we got a strategy, we had a plan in place, we felt really good about it.
You're in a position, I think you need to go for it. I took a deep breath, I was like, all right, let's go for it. I think I can do all the muscle ups unbroken. I don't know if the snatches need to be unbroken, but I'll push the pace and I'll see what happens. At that point, I was in the final heat, so pretty much whoever won that heat was going to be able to win that workout. We get out there, working my way through. Everybody's kind of even on the first set. After the middle set, the 9s, I pull ahead and I step forward to the final snatch bar in first. Willie Georges and Frazier step up to the barbell 3 to 5 seconds after me. I think I've already gotten a rep or 2 in. I do 2 snatches, step forward, 1 snatch, second snatch, and step forward. I get a no rep. I'm not saying that this at all is the reason that I didn't end up winning this workout. It just was circumstance. I actually did probably make a mistake. They told us that we had to step forward every third of the set of the snatches. So on the last set of 6, it was 2-2-2. And admittedly, on the video, as I finish my second snatch, instead of standing up and pausing for a second at the top, I kind of finish and step right forward into the next set, get the no rep, whatever, do the 3 extra reps at the end to finish. That one no rep there had given those guys the time to be able to catch up. So we all pretty much dropped the bar and stepped forward to the last set of 6 bar muscle ups at the exact same time. Crowd's going nuts. I jump up, I do 3 bar muscle ups, and I can feel my grip starting to give out. I don't know if you guys will be able to tell on here, but basically when I'm holding the pull-up bar, if I've got the bar down here securely in the palm of my hands, then my grip is good. As my grip starts to fade, my fingers kind of stretch and the bar ends up sitting closer to my fingers than it does to the palm of my hand. And on that 4th rep, the bar was all the way in my fingertips, and I chicken winged over, and I made it. And I kind of was like at the top, Hail Mary, like I've got 2 more muscle ups, I can do this. I swing down, and as I'm pushing back for the 5th one, my fingers kind of slip off. and Willie was able to hold on to it. Matt came down. We both jumped back up, finished the last two, and sprint across the finish line. And that was another one where it was just like, man, that could have been so good, and it was so close to being this amazing moment.
That was one of those events where he was trying to make a moment. Now, you could look back at it retroactively and say, well, if he didn't hang on to the last barbell touch and go or the second barbell touch and go, maybe his grip would have stayed better and he would have been able to do 6 unbroken. He would have gotten an event win. You could always do that retroactive analysis when you're in the moment. I think one of the character traits he displayed is that he was willing to take the risk to win. Not to take second, not to take third, not to pace and strategize, but to do what was required to win, which a lot of people won't do at the CrossFit Games or really in any competition, because the winning pace is way, way, way faster and more risky than letting somebody else set the pace and hanging off behind them and kind of setting your own pace. But he was willing in that moment to take the risk.
I could have had my first event win at the CrossFit Games, and just the energy of the weekend was flowing in the direction that it wasn't meant to be for whatever reason. And again, I'm not using that as an excuse. It happened that way. My grip gave out. It sucked. I was kind of bummed out. We had a 1-minute transition to get ready for the 21:15.9 portion of that. My grip was blown up at that point. I made my way through it, ended up taking 24th, which was not what I had expected or hoped, but all I could think about was taking 4th on the muscle up workout versus 1st. And I was really upset, and Joanne was asking, what's 4th is still really good. Why do you care about 3 extra places? I know it's more points, but why are you so upset about it? And I couldn't get over the fact that it was like what could have been. It could have been such another special, amazing moment like I'd had on the Fibonacci the night before. And I really wanted that, and I needed that. And it didn't happen. 2 things, and I think really any athlete and coach both need to figure out how to take personal responsibility in that moment. He had talked about not feeling like he could get the fact that he didn't win out of his mind. And I think he let that negative experience, because there was only a minute of recovery, he didn't figure out a way how to process the emotion and get into the next event quickly enough, and allowed that lapse in judgment to be a 24th place on a workout he probably should have finished higher in. And from my perspective, it's something that I told him, even in the moment, in the evening of that day when we went home. I said, look, I think from a training perspective, I could have done a better job preparing you for super grip intensive workouts and for doing a maximal effort workout on a short recovery into another maximal effort workout that's challenging the same type of thing, which in this case was grip. He had the grip issue on the rope climb in 2017, and so we spent a ton of time being able to train grip endurance under fatigue, train grip strength, finger strength, open hand strength, and I don't know if we did enough technically on the actual just grip that's challenged with barbell paired with kipping gymnastics. So personal responsibility on both sides, the design structure and the preparation on my side, execution on the floor on his side, ended up in a 4th and a 24th. And those are just the moments that you can't have happen at the games. You have Fraser taking a 2 and a 4, Vellner took a 5 and a 10. I think Willie Georges took a 1 and a 2, which bumped him up the leaderboard a ton. So there are people that have the capacity and the execution ability to do top scores on both of them, and that's what we had wanted. And I think, what it comes down to is a slight lack of preparation and a slight execution error ending up being a 4 and a 24, which is really not what you want to be if you want to be a podium contender. So it is what it is. That's on both of us to correct and figure out how to improve upon for subsequent competitions. Joanne was here, we were talking, I was stuck in this place of disappointment where I think I bumped myself up to 8th overall. Could have had these amazing moments. I just felt very blah about it at that point. And constantly, no matter what I was feeling, like at the end of the day, I know for each event, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do my best. I'm going to go as hard as possible. And however I'm feeling or whatever placement I'm in is not going to affect that. So even though I was feeling blah, I knew that on Sunday I was going to bring it and I was going to finish as strong as I could, even if it meant maybe not making it on the podium. And at that point, by Saturday night, as much as I didn't want to, I had kind of come to terms with, man, I don't think I'm going to make the podium this year. And again, not trying to be too pessimistic, but just being realistic. And a friend of mine in that video that Joanne had made said, effort over outcome. And that was something that kind of stuck with me. And I thought, all right, well, if the outcome is not going to be what I want it to be at this point, there's a pretty big gap that I need to make up. I'm just going to go and try to give as much effort as possible and have these special moments with the fans and my friends and family. And hopefully, as a bonus, I'll work my way as high up the leaderboard as I can.
Come on. Looking to her eyes.
So going into Sunday, we knew the first event, which was another one that I was pretty nervous about because it was very similar to the first event of the last day last year, 5-rounder with running and some other elements. We had trained it a lot this year here in Atlanta, and so I had a little bit more confidence knowing that I've worked on it, but still not confident enough to say, all right, I'm ready for this. I'm gonna crush this. Like, I've seen drastic improvement over the year. I had seen improvement, but still in training, every time I would do those run with some type of high power movement, it still always hurt. And it always took me a little while to recover on the run after that high power movement. So I knew, like, all right, this is still a tough combination of movements for me, but I've trained it. I have the confidence that I'm gonna at least do better than I did last year, knowing that I put in that work. And kind of like the marathon row, like, I don't really have too many thoughts on that one. Like, it is what it is. It kind of just happened. I ended up finishing middle of the pack, 24th. Would have liked to have done better, but I don't think that there was too much that I could have done in that moment to do better. I ran at what I think was the right pace for me. If I ran any faster, I probably would have been exhausted for the assault bike. If I biked faster, the same thing could have happened. I pulled the sled really fast every time. I did have a couple times where I was able to pick a few people off on the run, so I felt good about that, but there's not too much to it on that. That's just something that I need to train and do better, and at that time, that was close to the best I was gonna be able to do on that workout.
So I get into the stadium, and I see the handstand ramps on the floor. I see pegboards and a yoke there. I didn't see anything else. In my head, I think Noah was in 7th. 6th seemed catchable. 5th seemed almost out of reach unless he had like 2 event wins. 4th was way ahead, and obviously 3rd, 2nd, and 1st were pretty much out of the realm of possibility. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, what's the best case scenario now with what we have to work with? And I'm like, all right, well, win. And not only will that help him boost his way up the leaderboard, maybe getting all the way to 5th and having his second best games ever, might not be the podium, but definitely a good way to conclude the year. And I thought more so the secondary goal that we had of winning an event and the positive emotions that come with having and making a memory like that together. So I'm sitting in the stands and I'm like, come on, be something good. Like, we had enough adversity. It's time for some good stuff.
It was almost like a joke. Both of the workouts were like gifted to me. It was a handstand obstacle course race that had all of the elements that we had done at regionals, and then a new element of the parallel walkover, which I had done before. And that was it. It was literally like 1 minute handstand obstacle course. I had crushed that at the Invitational on Team USA, crushed that at regionals, had a ton of practice here. And I just was like, okay, all right, this is another one of those workouts. I gotta go for it, and this could be and should be amazing. And then the second workout that they announced also didn't have one element to it that I was nervous about. Pegboards, I've done those a lot. I feel really comfortable with those. Thrusters are one of my favorite movements. That's one of the movements that I happen to be near the top of the field at the games. And then a heavy yoke carry is something that this year I happened to build my confidence on. 2 months ago, we just piled on the weight and I wanted to see how heavy I could go. And I think I got really close to a 700-pound carry for 50 feet unbroken and felt really good about that. So of the 3 weights in that event, the final weight was 665. A lot of people were like, man, that's really heavy. And to me, I'm thinking, I can do that. I just did that. I did more than that. So I felt really good about the final 2 events and was excited to go out there and finish the games with a bang.
We have to capitalize. And that's what I was thinking, is just like, let's change the tone of this games and not have the adversity be the thing that defines the entire competition. And let's go out with a real bang.
Looking to her eyes.
Warming up for the handstand workout, I feel awesome. We get out onto the floor. I do the double unders unbroken, get onto the handstand course, moving through it really quickly, and I can hear the announcer saying, Noah Ohlsen is flying through the course well ahead of the rest of the field. And my plan was to get, I would call it 3/4 of the way through the course, unbroken, and then once I got past the yellow tape after the stairs, I was gonna come down, because once you get your hand over the tape and come down, you can do a reset and move into the next element. And that would leave only the ramp, the parallel bars, and the ramp to finish, which was a good plan. So I'm flying through. I saw a video afterwards. I didn't know where I was at the time, but in the video that I saw, I was going up and over the stairs while everybody else in my heat had started the ramp. So I was an entire element ahead of the rest of the field. I get my right hand on the tape line after the stairs. As I'm reaching my left hand over, I lose my balance and I'm falling back, and I jump both hands desperately across and touch over the line. Unfortunately, they told us in the warm-up area before the event started, you have to show control with both hands as you cross the line. If you jump your hands across, it doesn't count. You're gonna have to go back and do that element over again. Kind of like a few other moments throughout the weekend where you have like a second to process, shit, what do I do now? Like the pedal coming off, the no reps on the muscle ups. I jump across, the judge says no rep. I run back to the beginning of the stairs thinking, all right, maybe I can still salvage this. Get up and over the stairs, get my hands across the tape, come down. 3 or 4 people had caught up to me and were starting the ramp. I quickly get onto the ramp, trying to make up some ground, get halfway across the parallettes. My shoulders at this point were just kind of numb, fall off the parallettes, run back, take a second to shake it out. At that point, it had kind of sunken in like, damn, this one's slipping away just like other ones have in the past. Damn.
I think in the moment, again, was a display of character that he wants to win and take those risks to push the pace to win more than he wants to sit down and potentially play the hold back game. And I think in the context of the games, where we were, what had happened, what we were trying to do, it was the right decision. And it just ended up being like, an inch too short. If he had, got over the line and stayed balanced for a second longer, kicked down, shake his arms out, walked over, like the story could have been told in an entirely different way.
Get up and over the ramp, across the parallel bars, down the ramp, cross the finish line, jump across, take a 9th place again. And same thing as the muscle ups. 9th place is a good finish at the CrossFit Games, so people in the crowd are wanting to high five me, cheering me on, and I'm just like, guys, no, that was not good. That was not how that was supposed to go. That was supposed to be another amazing moment. Why wasn't that what it could have been? And I walked back to the warm-up area, and honestly, I saw Max and I just went like this. I was like, story of the weekend, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That I'm sorry. That I guess I blew it. I don't know. I did my best. I feel like I was executing according to the plan, and for whatever reason, right before the line, I lost my balance, and just is what it is. It feels like that's just how this games was meant to go. They were just, I was getting thrown punches left and right, and I was trying to throw them back. Sometimes they would land, sometimes they wouldn't.
The handstand walk ended up 9th, and again, it was kind of like he came off and was like, dude, like, I'm sorry I gave it my all, but that's just what the games is about this year. And I kind of felt the same way, but I thought, okay, well, you're still in the hunt, you're still in 7th, and you can still get up to 6th, and each one of these places is like valuable. Like, climb the leaderboard as high as you possibly can and be positive about what you could potentially do. The one downside of being where we were in that moment for the last workout was that I think both of us had kind of maybe hit our limit in terms of how much adversity we could take and what that did to our aggressive instinct.
To her eyes,
Last event, I want to finish strong. I thought about doing the pegboards unbroken, but again, had that voice in the back of my head like, oh yeah, you want to go 5 unbroken pegboards? What if you fail and end up having to go get another set of pegs and it ends up being this catastrophe?
My thought process was that Noah's upper body pulling capacity and his pegboard capacity is more than good enough that he could go up and down 5 times. What's the reward for that versus the risk of that? The risk, get stuck up there, blow up your grip, have all the people say that you don't have the ability to, close out a workout, you start too hot, you have grip limitations, like whatever people are gonna say and think about your capabilities. Or you get an event win, or you take a little pre-planned break and kind of plan for like the anywhere between 2nd and 6th place type performance. We opted to go with a little bit more conservative finish to go out on a high note. He ended up taking 3rd on the event and executing it really well. Like, he went exactly according to plan. It looked really good. He crossed the finish line. He carried the yoke unbroken. Like, it was just a really well executed event. Matt was in a position where there was no minimum standard. He can kind of take a risk and just go after it. And it would have been nice to be in a position where it mattered, where Noah could, do the same thing and chase that pace or try to beat him and that type of thing. But there was just really no reward for where we were sitting on the leaderboard.
I hate having those thoughts, but I succumbed to them a little bit and decided to do 3 unbroken, take a quick break, 2 unbroken. That ended up putting me in a decent place. If I had done the 5 unbroken, maybe I could have been 1st to the thrusters. Ended up being 3rd to the thrusters, 3rd to the yoke, and finishing that event 3rd overall. That was a good feeling to finish with a 3rd place on an event and have the games finally be over, and again, just really bittersweet.
Going out on a 3rd place event finish was definitely a pretty high note, but again, the tone was already set throughout the course of the game. So we kind of knew at that point before that event, like, you're going to be somewhere between 6 and 9 or lower if things go awful on this event, and 6 if you do really well. And I think Willie Georges at the time was the person that was ahead of him that was within striking distance. So it ended up being a good event finish.
I went into this year like knowing and feeling that this was it. I had a moment that I told Max about up here before I went back down to fly out to Madison, where I was walking Max, the dog, around the block, and I was thinking about the games, and I was just kind of talking to myself in my head, and I was like, I had a really great training session that day, and I felt super confident. I felt really physically fit and healthy, and I was saying, I can do it this year, and I'm going to do it this year. And literally, as I said, I'm going to do it, I looked down, and there was a penny on heads up on the ground. And I know it's not even like a big superstition, but Joanne and I we have a little lucky penny jar. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I bend down and I pick it up, and it says 2018 on the penny. And I was like, whoa. That's pretty cool. As I'm telling myself that this is gonna be my year, I find a good luck penny that says 2018 on it. And so just like everything leading up to this games felt like it was the right time. I had made this transition, moved up here, dedicated everything, the best training cycle that I'd ever done prior to the games. My body's super healthy, and games are over now, and it's 2 places lower of a finish than last year. And I think in the past, I would have been really disappointed, and I would have been sad and emotional, and I didn't really feel that as much as I had expected, because it was blanketed by the fact that for the first time in 5 years of competing at the CrossFit Games, I feel like the CrossFit community really got to know who I am as a person, and that was really special to me. I connected with so many people, whether it was in the crowd or along the bleachers as we were walking back, taking pictures, signing autographs, seeing people online. They had a vote for the spirit of the games, and it felt like, I don't know, I just saw so many people saying such kind, amazing things about me, and that was really, really, really special to me. And there were just those moments that I listed throughout the games all built up to this special feeling that as I was standing on the finish line, I could tell that people respected me and were proud of me and loved me. And to me, that meant a lot because I want to leave a strong legacy in this sport. And I think that was a really, really nice chapter to solidify in my book that I'm writing of my CrossFit Games journey. So I felt kind of serene, I think. I wasn't excited and fired up and ecstatic about making the podium like I wanted to, and I wasn't crushed and disappointed about not having done that like I'd wanted to. I was somewhere in the middle where I was like, you know what, this year didn't pan out the way that I wanted it to, but this was a really special year to me and a lot of other people, and I think I'll remember it forever as one of the most special CrossFit Games for me. And to add to that, there were so many moments throughout this year's games that I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. This is so stressful. This is so hard. I don't know if I want to do this next year. Like, I don't know. I don't want to be having these thoughts right now. I'll think about it after. The second that the games were over and I was standing on the finish line as they were announcing who had won, I was like, this is not it. I'm ready for next year, and I know that I'm 100% committed to reaching this goal as long as it takes to reach that goal. You know, it is going to be hard every year, and I think every year I'm going to have those thoughts and those doubts, but until there is a strong reason for me not to keep going and keep trying, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep trying.
I've been trying to really put into perspective what this year meant, and the negatives are really clear to me. There's obviously things I can do better as a coach. There's things I can do better in a training environment. I think there's things I can do better to prepare athletes, and the leaderboard reflected that. We went in there with the desire to put 2 athletes in podium contention this year. I had 1 athlete who took 6, which I think is still podium contention. I think from an objective perspective, Noah's performances pre-working with me are 8.8.15, and then to go 4.6 are definitely positive. It's just hard, I think, sometimes as an athlete to have that type of forward momentum and have belief in what the next chapter looks like, and then have it be a step back. So that's the negative. Is that big of a negative? I'm not really sure. I mean, there were a lot of moments of love in the competition, not just love from the fans, love from sponsors, love from his actual loved ones, but I think even in the development and cultivation of my own business, just people got together, they got connected, they got behind Noah in his games preparation, they helped Noah with his actual preparation, the creation of the media stuff. There's so many positives and things to be grateful for with regards to the season, and I think really that's the narrative that I have. I think Noah's going to kind of leave TTT and go back to Miami, which was something that we knew would probably happen. And there's going to be some sadness, some grieving. He'll obviously make trips back up here at times for camps or for training camps or for training for specific competitions or just to come up and hang out. But there's going to be a change or an evolution, a next step. And I think that's really the exciting thing, is that every chapter of this story that kind of gets wrapped around the CrossFit Games season, because the business does other things, coaches people outside of CrossFit Games, coaches people in other sports, but really a big portion of the infrastructure gets wrapped around the competitive season. And so each year as you come to a conclusion, there's this nice time where it's peaceful, where like, all right, the excitement has died down, all the chips are on the table, and you kind of get to look at, from an outside objective perspective, where your life has come and what the narrative looks like. And I think this is the first time where things in the external world went so far away from what the goal and the ambition was this year. But things in my own heart, in my emotions, in my intellectual capacities all seem to be trending in a really good direction. And it was a really awesome experience for me to have had so many of those things that I would have deemed negative in the past happen, and to still have the cohesion of the entire group, especially Noah, because like, who knows, you're a high profile athlete. It's always an easy thing to blame your preparation and say, I wasn't prepared as well as I needed to be to make the podium, and I need to find a new coach. So that's a reality that I make peace with when I take on a high profile athlete, that a really competitive person is going to try to find any competitive advantage they can. And so I make peace with the fact that that can happen at the end of every season. And so for none of that to have transpired, I really just feel happy but hungry. Just I feel like things are exactly where they should be, and there's a lot of positive potential and new experiences and potentially an evolution of the sport and changes that have been announced, and a new project in terms of how do we prepare all these athletes for the next competitive season. So my thoughts are all in a pretty good place, which is an interesting way to exist that I don't think I've been in a long time.